Welcome investors. Today we have prepared as our strategy consulting team a presentation for you on a sustainability evaluation between Air France-KLM and the airline Lufthansa.
So here's a quick overview on the history of Air France-KLM. Air France and KLM were two separate airlines and merged in 2004. They've been named the leading group for international air travel from Europe. And the airline has fleets of all sizes, but it's important to note that they have a lot of long-haul fleets and cargo fleets, which take up a large toll on the environment. And lastly, they are part of the SkyTeam Alliance. Air France-KLM have three specific set in stone sustainability goals by 2030, which entail 50% less CO2 emissions per passenger per kilometer compared to 2005, 50% less non-recycled waste compared to 2011, as well as completely carbon neutral ground operations.
Now let's take a look at what Air France-KLM has done to curb their CO2 emissions. First, let's talk about the corporate biofuel program. In essence, the Air France-KLM corporate biofuel program offers corporate clients the opportunity to fly on sustainable aviation fuels by absorbing the premium, which is the difference between the pricing in traditional jet fuel and sustainable alternative fuel. Additionally, the program has made a commitment to building Europe's first production plant in Delphi by 2022, and the plant expects to produce 100,000 tons of SAFs annually. Secondly, let's talk about the CO2 Zero Initiative, which essentially offers customers the opportunity to offset their own CO2 emissions by donating to a tropical mixed reforestation project in Panama. Along those lines, KLM is a partner in 8 EcoAct projects. These are projects that take place across the world and are focused on reforestation, forest preservation, and biodiversity. All these projects selected have received the highest certification standards on the voluntary carbon offset market, the World Wild Fund's gold standard, and CCBA's CCB standard. Lastly, KLM is a member of the Clean Skies for Tomorrow coalition, whose mission is to advance the commercial scale of viable production of SAFs for broad adoption in the industry by 2030. Moreover, Air France-KLM is also advocating for sustainability initiatives at a micro level and has outlined a mobility plan for their staff. Specifically, Air France-KLM has promoted public transit, encouraged working from home, participation in car sharing programs, all in an effort to increase employee awareness of the link between air quality and modes of transport. Additionally, another main sustainability initiative has focused on plastic usage. In 2019, the airline successfully phased out 210 million disposable plastic items and plans to decrease their single-use plastics by 80% by 2020. And then in terms of limiting the sound production, Air France-KLM has placed an emphasis on abiding by noise abatement, departure and approach procedures, as well as modernizing their fleet to limit the noise pollution at the source. Additionally, they pay roughly 30 million euros a year to soundproof homes that are local or around the airports.
All right, moving on to Lufthansa now. Lufthansa is a German airline founded in 1997. They're mostly known for the European and international flights with over 300 destinations in over 100 countries. They're a founding member of the Star Alliance, which is the largest airline alliance in the world. And they boast one of the biggest airline fleets in the world with 763 planes as of 2018. One of their first steps in combating climate change was joining the UN Global Compact in 2002, which is kind of their first stepping stone for their sustainability initiatives. Lufthansa is committed to the 4 pillars of sustainable reform in aviation, which are economic, social, environmental, and human sustainability. They are partnering with a company called Compensate to offset carbon emissions. They are funding a program for SAF development. They are attempting to create more efficient aircrafts and improving technology on existing aircrafts to cut down on these carbon emissions. And their carbon emissions have increased in total volume over the past year, despite increases in fuel efficiency. The emissions per passenger and per flight have decreased. So this is a good but not great scenario. Other Lufthansa sustainability practices, they are cutting waste in non-aircraft equipment as well. One of the ways they're doing so is through rechargeable forklift batteries that save 235,000 kilowatt hours annually, and e-tugs, which reduce emissions by 75% compared to diesel tugs. Their Fly Greener program offers waste and recycling management and reduction of plastic packaging on board, and new vortex generators and optimization of approach and departure procedures are all reducing noise pollution.
So we talked a little bit about what each company is doing, and now we were going to compare them and put them next to each other and really look into the details of how they compare to each other. So in terms of similarities of what they're both doing, they both have an optional offsetting carbon emission program for their consumers. Air France has invested in a couple more. We have the tree planting program as discussed, as well as their biofuel program for the sustainable aviation fuel optional flights, and partnered with the CO2 Zero program for funding donations. Lufthansa is partnered with Compensate for their program for funding SAF donations as well. They both also promote the development of SAF, which is a little more seen on Air France's side with building the first SAF production plant in Europe, as well as their initiation in the Clean Skies for Tomorrow program. And they really embrace that SAF full replacement by 2030 goal. Lufthansa has not had as stable commitments to any sort of goals, although they do have a replacement goal by 2030 with SAF, but more so they're committed to the 4 pillars of aviation sustainability, as many airlines are, and are working towards SAF development, but don't have as many tangible goals for that. They both also have a goal of creating more efficient and sustainable aircraft, with Lufthansa investing over $80 million in the equipment of building this, and Air France saying they've also purchased more efficient aircraft, and their goal is to reduce the weight to lessen pollution, as well as promote eco-piloting. But in terms of differences, we have broken down some of the evaluation factors to better give you an idea of where the differences lie in terms of carbon emissions and how this is going to impact your investment decision. So the main thing we have here is goal setting and specificity. In terms of specific numbers, Air France KLM is doing a little bit of a better job at just creating those set goals with tangible numbers and metrics to decide on how to increase their sustainable impact. They had a 50% carbon emission reduction goal by 2030, and on a smaller scale level, they have a 1 to 2% electric power consumption reduction goal that they've been following each year, and they had said one for 2021 that they did actually achieve. Lufthansa, on the other hand, had a 25% carbon emission reduction goal for 2020 that they set in 2006 and have only met 67% of that goal. You can also see in terms of offsetting emissions, as discussed before, Air France is involved in several different programs, including the tree planting, EcoAct projects, CO2 Zero, and just funding that SAF transition. Lufthansa does have that Compensate program, as well as requires all employee flights to be carbon neutral. But that's about it in terms of what they're doing for offsetting. And in terms of actual carbon output, which is a big topic, while both airlines have had traffic increase, meaning they've increased their flights, the CO2 level has remained about the same and constant for Air France KLM for output, while Lufthansa has seen a 6.6% increase in 2018 alone due to their increase in traffic.
So moving on to other sustainable practices, in their similarities, we've narrowed it down to 3 specific similarities when it comes to both airlines. In the promotion of recyclable materials, Air France has had quite the success phasing out their disposable goods. Alike, Lufthansa has been replacing plastic and paper with recyclable materials on their flights. In noise pollution, Air France KLM has implemented a procedure at descent that has had success of 43% noise reduction per movement compared to 2000, while Lufthansa has also invested in creating quieter aircrafts but have no data on its work thus far. Both airlines have included their staff in their sustainability practices, as Air France KLM has promoted pollution awareness, as well as encouraged its employees to either work from home or carpool. As Lufthansa also has mandatory pollution risk awareness and anti-corruption courses for all of its executives and leaders. When it comes to differences, overall, again, Air France KLM is more quantitative with their sustainability goals, while Lufthansa seems to be doing the minimum. In their investments and initiatives, Air France, in one example of many, have effort in allowing endangered species to return, as well as invested in research upon the future of sustainability in flying, while Lufthansa has done less. As one example of something they have come out to boast about is purchasing 49 more energy efficient forklift chargers. In their collaboration with others, Air France KLM KLM is in a cooperative agreement with TU Delft to create an aircraft with 20% fuel reduction and have eight projects with EcoAct to protect endangered species. While Lufthansa has come out saying they follow the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but have no tangible partnerships or outside initiatives besides doing the required of all airlines when it comes to sustainability. In their plastic waste reduction, as you can see, Air France KLM is much more quantitative in their goals and accomplishments with real metrics, while Lufthansa has simply stated they're reducing disposable materials with recyclable materials and no future metrics. However, they also do have the Fly Greener program aimed at reducing waste on board.
So as you can tell, probably from our presentation, but we just want to clarify some points. Our final recommendation is that you invest in Air France KLM because it better aligns with both your values of sustainability, as well as they are just a little more tangible with their goals and metrics for improvement, which is just a smarter choice for numerical reasons for investing and having those tangible ideas. They also have more partnerships with eco-friendly companies and a larger impact just on the environment in general and their sustainable initiative outcomes, as you've seen from our presentation, and they're just a little more invested in the production of sustainable aviation fuels and reaching that 2030 replacement goal. So we do recommend that you choose Air France for your investment. Thank you.